Good morning to you. It is Tuesday, May 6th at 10:39 a.m. Hope you're doing well. A couple things have been popping off, and I wanted to react a little bit to them. Get a little conversation going with you guys as well. Before I start off, I wanted to say thanks to the people who made my shirt, Home Field Apparel. Head over to homefieldapparel.com, enter Boiled25 at checkout for 15% off your first order. They got some really cool stuff. Like I said, this is a classic, the old Block P. Always can't go wrong with the old stuff. Also, when you're on campus and you've just watched Matt Painter paint a masterpiece, to quote an old Curtis Painter reference. What do? You head out of Mackey and you head towards the fire station. When you get there, turn left. And you're going to see the blue lights on the AJ sign. And when you're going to go inside, you're going to see the friendliest damn staff. Not in just West Lafayette, in all of the U.S. Can I say that? I think I say that. I'm going to say that. And by the way, if you're looking for a fun time, go to campus when school's out and hang out with your family. If you've got young kids, bring the bikes, ride around campus. You'll have a great time. I used to do it with my kids when they were younger. It's great. And now my son rides around campus as a student. But not for long because summer's coming. So, but back on the task, back on what we're talking about. Burgers, beef, beer. That's AJ's. EatAJ's.com. And if you do take me up on this suggestion of going to campus when school's out, enjoy the afternoon. It's a great time. It's one of my favorite things I used to do when my kids were younger. So I even did it before I had kids. I went with my friend and we rode around. Good time. Anyway, I do love campus when it's busy. I love it when it's game day, of course, but I also like to reminisce when nobody's there. So it's way different than it used to be. It's changed a lot since 1997. So, all right, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. And the first one is, if you haven't seen this, the On3 people are not very impressed with Barry Odom's portal work thus far. I understand on some level the idea of not being super impressed with what Purdue's done in the portal, because you don't see a lot of, this is a recurring theme with Purdue, but not a lot of sizzle, right? What I think is happening, though, is I really do think Odom's checking off needs, and there are tons of them. The roster has been dismantled for multiple reasons. One, of course, changing coaches is always going to yield that. This era, rosters fall apart. It just happens. But also, Odom felt like there was need to have change all over the roster, all over the field. And he's got a colossal job. The reason I did my thumbnail the way I did, comparing and contrasting Tiller and Odom and asking, could history repeat itself, is because when Tiller came in, it was not as dire. I don't make any bones about it. Coletto had built a roster that was big and strong and sturdy, and it was based on some things. Ironically, the greatest strength Tiller had in his roster when he came on to run the basketball and grass, the high-powered offense, was the amount of size that Jim Coletto had recruited. Those guys got moved around on the field. It created a great offensive line. He had guys that were tight ends who became tackles, offensive tackles. He had guys that were quarterbacks who were so big, he made them into linebackers. It was something that Tiller was really good at, spotting talent, putting it in place to succeed. And Odom's assignments are much different. And he doesn't really have time to go through the development and all that stuff. He's just trying to find bodies that can fit the bill. And so he is getting a lot of players out of the portal. According to Diener at Golden Black, he talked about in 2 years at UNLV, he had 50 players from the portal. Well, I believe they've surpassed that number at Purdue in the first year, I believe. I'm not positive about that. But regardless of how many players it is, we know it's a massive overhaul. So if you ask the question, can this fall be as enjoyable as the fall of 1997? My answer would be probably not. And I'm not trying to be down on anybody. I just think there's so many things that have to be better. There's one comparison, though. If you look at another thing, is there is a previous, Billy Dicken obviously started more games than Ryan Brown has, but you got a previous starter kind of looking to rectify a situation, reclaim some success. help Purdue get back to where they want them to get. So you have a previous starting quarterback, but he has nowhere near the experience that Dickin had when Tiller named him the starter, with Drew Brees waiting in the wings, obviously. It's a very different situation. There is no, I don't believe on this roster, there's a record-setting future All-American, future Hall of Famer in the stable right now for the quarterback situation. But also, Barry Odom's not going to run the Joe Tiller system. Purdue's going to run the ball a lot. They're going to establish the pass establish the run, and then by establishing the run, open up the pass. That's what it looks like to me. But we'll see. We really don't know. We're not positive about what the system will look like exactly. It could be a composite of what USC was running, and some things that Odom's learned along the way, and hearkening back to where he was at Missouri. But we do know they're going to run the ball quite a bit, and that's a big contrast to what Tiller installed, where you pass, and you pass some more. And when you need to get short yardage, you pass. When you need to get long yardage, you pass. So it's going to be different. It's going to look different than that. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. Also, one of the USA Today writers is not impressed with the Odom hire. It ranks Odom pretty low in the conference, the bottom half of the conference. I think you can be critical and level-headed of things, but I also think the recency bias always shades things like that. When a writer decides to go after a coach, or decides to rank coaches, what has happened in the last season always comes up quickly. I don't think it was the most fair ranking of Odom specifically, or the most accurate. But at the same time, there's lots to be proven here by Odom and company. It's a very experienced coaching staff, but they do have their work cut out for them. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, if you've had the chance to listen to the Caleb First podcast, where it's kind of a closing out of a career, I would, if you haven't had the chance, I would highly suggest you do it. The reason I would suggest it is we always talked about, whether it's me and Nish, Jay, whatever, talked about how much of a quality guy Caleb First was, but you get to know him a little bit even better in this podcast. It's like an hour long, and it was great. It was Purdue Sports put it on. I can't remember. It's the one with Blackman and darn it, one of the other guys on the staff. Names are escaping me, as they always do, especially when you're live streaming. Happens all the time. You don't realize how forgetful of a person you are until there's a little bit of an added pressure of having people actually watch you do something live. And I do it all the time. So my apologies. But what I will say, Caleb First, he admitted a couple things that were pretty neat to hear. But one thing you come away with the idea is this guy was a great team guy, really good for chemistry, a quiet leader, a guy who kind of dealt with things, kind of what we've seen in the past, Purdue basketball, guys taking a back seat, and him admitting that it actually affected him when he lost the starting role, and then how much it meant to him to get back to the starting lineup. That really affected him. Some guys talk about the starting doesn't matter all that much to him, but Caleb admitted it did matter to him. That was one takeaway. Another big takeaway I had there was how important, obviously his faith is really important to him, but he's got a lot going on. It's a guy trying to get ready for med school. They talked about having to take tests to get to the MCAT to get into med school. How many run-throughs he had to do? How many hours it would take just to do a mock test? And I can't relate how much of a superhuman effort it must be for somebody like that to just to do what he does on the daily, from practice to academic rigor, that sort of thing. I've always respected the guys that were able to do that. I had a hard enough time going to class, honestly. It was difficult, and my major is nowhere near pre-med. So a lot of respect for Caleb there. But I also found he was allergic to peanuts, which is something that he had to deal with a couple times. They had a couple funny stories, and that's something my family we deal with here, but not me. I love peanut butter. And there was one other thing that I thought was really noteworthy, and maybe it'll come to me after I'm done with the show, probably. But that's what happens when you don't take very good notes. You kind of end up screwing up. So next up, let's see. I want to talk about something that Painter said in an article on Gold and Black. It's not surprising to anybody, but he called the team sacrificial in the way they have accepted being part of the Purdue team and winning. Payne always says this statement: winning needs to be enough, right? And his whole idea is that Purdue is not going to offer the best monetary package, but it's going to be about more than just money. It's going to be about being a part of something bigger, and also the scholastic portion has to matter to these guys. Obviously, a guy like Miles Colvin ends up at Wake Forest. That's a great education. Or when a player, goes to a really good school, Mason Gillis goes to Duke, you're like, well, okay, that's pretty incredible. But a lot of times that's not the case. I'd say Texas is a bit of a diploma mill. You can get a good education at Texas, but I don't know if Cam Heide was like, man, I really want to go study whatever there at Texas they don't offer at Purdue. And most of the time, I don't know if Colvin had studies in mind either when he left for Wake Forest. We have heard that Gillis was a Duke fan from one of you guys, which I hate Duke, so I can't relate with that. But Payne saying that these guys are sacrificing a lot. What he was really referencing was the fact that a lot of these guys could get paid much more than they are getting paid by Purdue. It's still weird for me as an old guy to say that. To have coaches saying, we're going to pay this much, or this is the way we're going to run the purse strings. Still bizarre for me to get used to. I'm still not at the position where I'm completely comfortable with it, even though it's all in the up and up. It just seems so weird to hear that. But I'm glad Painter admits that maybe Purdue doesn't pay as much as other schools, and I think that's okay. At the same time, Purdue is paying players well. It's not like that's the whole thing. I think there's a misconception that by many older Purdue fans saying, oh, Purdue didn't go down in there and pay players. No, they've been doing it since the rules have allowed it, and they've been paying them well. They're making more than you and I. Probably the vast majority of the rotation, I think, is all making more than we will this year. But they're not making maybe what some of the market will offer. Fair market value, the idea of some regulation of how much a guy is worth. There's contract caps in the NBA, things like that, based on experience. But there are guys that have taken pay cuts to stay at Purdue, and that's great to hear. Good to hear. All right, so one more thing I want to talk about before I go to comments with you guys, and I want to start easing into the idea that it might not just always be Purdue talk in the summer. We talked about the Pacers last time. I think that was last time. But this time, I'll talk a little bit about IndyCar real quick. It's going to be fast. For those of you who don't like IndyCar, it's fine. I won't hurt you too badly. But one thing I'd like to say is it's pretty amazing. Number one, they've had so much green flag racing in the young season, but this hybrid power plant has created some problems. And I think they were trying to set up for having more manufacturers come in. That didn't happen. And now you've got what's akin for me, and maybe I can offend some other racing fans here. It's always fun to do. It's akin to me with F1 racing right now. What F1 was, especially 5-10 years ago, where there's just not enough passing for the American market, in my opinion. Granted, street courses have a problem where there's not many passing zones. And we've already seen a road course this year, maybe two. But these designed courses like Alabama, those are usually pretty good for passing and generally good racing. And it was not good racing. It was not exciting, not compelling. Very few passes. The Fox team tried to do what they could to make it fun to watch. Got a little bit, I think they're overly dramatic, especially the guy who's the number one seat in that. I'm not a big fan of him. I like Diffie a little bit better. But I think IndyCar has a problem, if I'm being real honest, with they've got to figure out how to make racing more compelling, get more passing back into it, and they probably should try to do it this season. I know they said they're going to go to doing a different tire setup where you have to use 2 soft and 2 hard rubber tires during a race instead of having, was it 3 and 1 before? But we'll see if that works. But they got an issue on their hands, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when they go to IMS and get on the big oval. Obviously, we go to the road course first at the Grand Prix, but see what happens. So that's about it. All right, that's it. That's the last of the IndyCar talk. It's funny when you are known for talking about something. I'm known for talking about Purdue basketball and football. When you step outside that, people take it very personally, as if I only have interest in one thing. One thing I could talk to you guys about is I have a real interest in in new companies being founded to make cars. Okay, so I was just watching a video about Aptera. I was a reservation holder for that vaporware company for a while. I could talk about that for an hour, and I'd probably get more clicks, but I'd also get very, very angry people. So I'm not going to abandon everybody, but in the summer might be a good time to talk about things outside of our realm. Okay, hey, all right. Now we talk about what you guys are here to talk about. Chris Harder is here. How are you, Chris? Hope you're doing well. I sent you a DM on on IG. I wanted to see what you had to say about that, but we'll talk later. We'll connect later. Greg Mitchell, good morning. How are you? Motor City Boiler says, good morning from Pueblo, Mexico. Pueblo, Mexico. I assume that is vacation. That's pretty awesome. I don't, are you really there? Are you being sarcastic? If that's true, that's pretty awesome. I don't think maybe. I don't know what Puebla is. Jarvis just says, got sweet hockey hoodie sweatshirt from Home Field a couple of weeks back. That thing's sturdy. That's awesome. Let us know more thoughts if you'd like, but that's very, very cool. And I think you've already done your first order, but you can get creative getting around that. So I hope you use the 15% off. Greg Manda says, good morning all. How are you, Greg? Greg Mitchell says, I still have a couple shirts from early 80s that look like your shirt because they're old. Yes. The old Block P are pretty cool. The fact that you have t-shirts that are still surviving, props to you. My stuff gets shredded. I don't know what I do. Number one, I always talk about remember they used to have the Sure commercials, the pH, strong enough for a man, made for a woman. Yeah, my pH must be messed up because I just destroy shirts. Like they get pitted out. It's pretty gross. They used to go through, back when I was stronger and in better shape, I used to pit them. I would sleeve them and then I would go lift or work out in them. That happens less and less now just because I don't think anybody should have to look at that much skin on me. So I try to save people from it. Marshall Briggs, a man who I don't think, I think this guy, based on his picture, he could sleeve a shirt. Dude's put together. Says, morning, B. Dowd. Thoughts on non-con schedule just released. Is the calendar fully intact now? Or are we talking about just that? Is the other thing is that the first question is the calendar fully released? I haven't checked that. Second thing is that tournament set that they're a part of in the Bahamas? It looks like an incomplete field to me still. You got Memphis. I thought there were one short. I could be wrong, but I know Wake was just added, which is interesting for Purdue fans because now Purdue gets to play Miles Colvin in another shade of gold and black. It's actually, by the way, for your record, it's the same shades of gold because the way Nike does things, the dye lot, they're using Vegas gold as well. And many of the coaches' shirts are the exact same shirts that Purdue gets, just with a different logo embroidered on them. And it used to be they would do it here locally in Indy and then send them out to the schools, but yeah, interesting sidebar, but let's see. So I don't have a lot of thoughts yet. I guess what I'm saying. I dodged the question. I apologize. But I don't even know if it's a fully complete schedule. When it's a complete schedule, I was going to come on here and react. Maybe you need to do it now. I know it feels like they just kind of release little by little, kind of something like almost feels like they're giving us talking points, something to stay interested in during the off season, but I might be wrong about that. Greg McManus, he's talking to Motor City Boiler, but he says, on-3 rankings and lists are laughable. The entire list is just throwing stuff up at a wall randomly. And many things are in the off season, right? Many things are, but if you look back, so the whole thing about ranking, recruiting rankings and portal rankings, Joe Tiller's teams, the first year, they were very, very lowly ranked. The recruiting looked really bad. I think Purdue was in if I remember correctly. I mean, I tried to go back and find the articles that talked about this. You can't even find them anymore. I guess not all things on the internet are forever. Maybe it is going to be that way, but it's funny. Like you look for an article and it's a dead link where there's nothing in there. But I tried to find the information, but if I'm remembering back correctly, I think Tiller's first class at Purdue was in the 70s. And this is back when Division I was smaller too. And so a lot of people were worried, but what he started doing was jockeying those players around, putting them in position to succeed, changing the lineup that way. And he was brilliant at spotting talent, just brilliant. What Odom is doing is dealing with different problems to solve. He's got to solve problems all over the field. And I know some of you guys, Grant down below, I'm going to talk to him here in a second, are very excited about what Purdue's done in the portal because they've gotten some guys that look like they should be surefire hits. But we've been through this before. And so I'm a bit skeptical on that side. But we'll see. We'll see. A lot to think about. Greg McManus continues and says, and I completely think of On3 national or conference writers made that on their own without talking to Dienert. I do too. I give Tom a hard time, but downgrading a team who's already 1-11, yeah, and is him. So let me give you a little devil's advocate idea. So what On3 said is our talent has gotten worse in spite of the portal effort. Look at some of the departures in key areas. That's the hardest thing, I think, for anybody to swallow. Purdue's guys that flirted with all conference or were all conference are gone, right? Actually, the only one is there is Devin still. Devin Mockbee is still there. It's awesome. It's fantastic. I can't express how happy I am that he's still there. But Purdue lost a lot of talent. And the guys who were really, really noteworthy, they're in conference, Oregon, Ohio State specifically is the examples I think about. Then they lost guys who flirted with all conference that went to the, in losing Marcus Bowe, that went to the NFL. They've lost a lot of guys in key areas. So they are gaining guys that started some places, but I'm seeing more than anything, maybe you guys can tell me I'm wrong, that Purdue is getting guys out of the portal that are young. They got a lot of guys that are coming that have 2, 3, 4 years of eligibility left. That's great. And they were highly touted out of high school. But this is an era where it seems like the best programs are doing everything on the back of veterans, right? Guys that are already grown into their role. I'm not saying freshmen, sophomores can't have an impact. Obviously, we saw with Thieneman how important a freshman can be. But still, I can understand the skepticism by On3 and other places. Nate Dolan says, who will be this year's Billy Dicken to Brian Alford equivalent? There's a couple receivers that I'm excited about on paper, but Brian Alford was a security blanket for Dicken. He was very established. The year before at Purdue, you remember back the 1996 season, Alford was tearing Ohio State up in the first quarter. I think he had 2 catches for if I remember correctly, 2 catches for 90 yards, and Purdue was up 14-0. Purdue lost 42-14 in that game. But Brian Alford was a guy who was a threat, and obviously went on playing in the NFL, legit veteran threat. Do they have that on the roster this year? I mean, they've got a couple transfers that are interesting, but I don't know. I think we're gonna have to wait to see how fall goes, how camp goes before we can make an educated guess. I can make a guess, but I've done that before and I've been so wrong. I don't know if it helps you guys or me any doing that, but I could do it still. Let's see. Elliot Bloom. Correct, Greg. It was Elliot Bloom. That's right. Greg McManus reminds me. Yeah, you should listen. If you guys like that sort of stuff, like hearing the human side of Purdue basketball and football, I highly suggest listening to that podcast. It's very, very good. And they haven't done it in months, but this was a very good conversation. Greg McManus continues, it always knocked me out when I was in school that Matt Waddell was a pharmacy major. Yep. And starting. He must have had a life outside of books and basketball. He must not have had a life outside of books and basketball. And that's the thing that's even more noteworthy about Caleb First. And I don't know about Waddell's situation back in the 90s. But Caleb also has a fiance. If any of you were engaged in college or close to engagement, I got engaged for second semester. I was engaged in my senior year, and it kind of stepped things up to the next level. Obviously, you're like, okay, this is a person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I really value my time with her, and so Caleb's got a fiance. He's pre-med. He plays basketball, and he's doing the elf things, which you guys talk about. Who's the elf in waiting? Somebody asked that down here. I don't know if I'm trying to think who's the clown on this group, and I don't know the answer to that, because that's the funny thing. They're serious dudes. One thing Caleb First talked about, this is it, is he talked about how much of a quiet class that he was a part of. The personalities were quiet. And he said he kind of had to come out of his shell during that time. But TKR, another member of that class, and that's a good observation. It's a funny observation. We think about when you have a class come in and they're all introverts. That's an interesting thing in Painter's system, because Painter always talks about the importance of guys communicating all the time, yelling at each other, talking to each other on the court. And it should kind of leach into off the court communication as well. Tough thing for a guy. He also said that, which I thought was really interesting. He's like, I was good in high school. Now I feel like I suck, when he came on campus. And he was like, I'm getting my butt kicked here by guys that are really good. I don't understand the sets, all these things. It's like that drinking out of the fire hose thing. But very interesting admissions by First. It's a great interview. Great, very good listener. Need to be in versus B Dowd. Just got out of a meeting, so apologies if you haven't mentioned it. But did you see Purdue released its full non-con basketball schedule? Okay, yeah, I talked about it, and I have not done that homework. I took my notes of what I was going to talk about, and I haven't done that yet. So looks like I owe you guys another podcast this week. So I'm gonna have to react to that. I think that's fair. Lots of talent on there as usual, Auburn and Indy. Yeah, I did talk about that a little bit, how loaded the schedule was last time. But now that it's all there, we can look at it. Purdue is absolutely sadistic in the way they create schedules. Matt Painter Bloom talks about that idea, the switch in schedule philosophy that happened when First was a freshman. Keep in mind, Caleb First, winningest player ever to graduate from Purdue right now. I think he'll be surpassed by the seniors next year if things go according to plan. But they playing these monstrous preseason schedules is amazing. It's even more amazing how well they've done. 4 for 4 in November tournaments, coming out in champions. And this year you're going to have to go through Memphis, which I think might be the toughest team in that tournament outside of Purdue. Granted, this is not like the Maui Invitational or the PK Classic, whatever that was called, out in Portland. Those were loaded to the gills. But still, it'll be fun. Tournament atmospheres are always good too. Ted Berkey says, morning, glad I could make it late. Glad you're here, Ted. Nolan Hostetler says, watching I'm a little behind, but love going to campus when in summer. Everything is bloom. It's pure bliss. Completely agree. It's just tons of fun. And I say it all the time. It's funny. If you are, obviously you guys on here, you girls on here, are fond of your time at Purdue, I have such fond memories of Purdue and what it means to me in my life. Outside of sports, it means a lot to me. My dad went there, and much of my family went there. And so there's just all these interesting connections. So the tighter I can keep that connection, the better I feel. Part of the reason I love the sports, basketball and football, is because it gives me a reason, an excuse to just keep going back and keeping that relationship with that place and the people. It's all about the people. So yeah, I agree. Gets me choked up. Steve Vazano says, I know analytics have said that shorter QuickCast may be better for reaching wider audience, but in my opinion, the more content, the better. It makes my workouts way more enjoyable than music. Good feedback. I appreciate it. Yeah, the big thing that I was looking at a couple months ago, I talked to the people at Believe, and one thing they said, the faster ones work better. I mean, I'm already to 30 minutes, 28 minutes. The fast ones work better for creating a bigger pool. But these longer ones, what I find is we feel like we're connected. You guys and we connect better. And I think that really matters. And I don't make any money on this. I've thought about going the route where I'm like, okay, what if I tried to make this my job? Because my job has been tough the last year. And I think I would have to make some deals with things that I don't want to make. And the biggest one I would tell you, because it's come at us a couple times, if you bet, that's fine. If you bet on sports, that's fine. I don't care. Just keep it under control and don't get yourself into trouble. I'm not your dad. But one thing is the money in advertising in these podcasts, if you want to look behind the curtain, comes from betting. That's the biggest one. I think you can do there's some other ways you can make money in this, but we've had opportunity to do live spots for bets, for betting apps, and have turned it down. And it's been a decision that it costs the site money. It doesn't cost me any money because I don't take it home anyway. But if I wanted to do that, that would probably be the deal I'd have to make. I'm just not comfortable doing that. So a couple points there you guys didn't ask about. Boiler Bugle says, yes, I'm here for the IndyCar content. Well, excellent. You're going to hear probably more, especially as May progresses. And I'll try to warn people. Maybe those will be the shorter, the true QuickCast where I talk about IndyCar for 20 minutes. But I don't know as much about IndyCar. And truth be told, I mean, I love the Indy 500. I've gone to the Grand Prix until a couple of years ago when Little League sports started getting in the way on Saturdays. I would go every year. And since then, I honestly, I found that race got pretty boring. I know there was a good one in the last, 2 years? Was it Pagano's victory? Or that's 4 years ago, probably, when he dominated the month of May. But yeah, I don't know as much. I don't feel as comfortable talking about it as I do talking about Purdue sports. And even in Purdue sports, though, I hope you guys have understood. I will admit when I don't know something, and there are a lot of things I don't know, especially in this era where the portal is so fluid. I just saw an analysis of the guys have entered the NBA draft, put their names in, and how many of them are still going to come out and go into the portal and land at college programs like Kansas or Michigan State or wherever, right? The portal never closes. It makes this absolutely a 24/7 job. And this is not my job, so I don't have time to do it all the time, quite honestly. So Jay Westfall says, go team Chevy. Pretty broad brush, not just Penske, but Chevy. Yeah, the Honda, you're going to have a hard time getting around Purdue. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's his month. I think he's going to have a month kind of like Pagano did a couple years ago. I think Purdue's going to win the 500. There's a weird tradition, too, of Ganassi cars winning with red liveries. When they don't have red liveries, they don't win. He's going to have a red livery, I think. So if you're into that superstition stuff too, so a lot to look at there. It's going to be tough to get around Honda cars. We'll see how they do on the big circuit. Gavin McDonald says, huge game for the Pacers tonight. It is, and that was a great first game. I got to tell you one thing. Maybe you guys, I've talked about officiating in the NBA. Have you noticed that when they have a replay or a challenge on a call, are you like me and you're wrong every time? Like I joke about that with the NFL too, but with the NBA it's worse. They'll challenge a call and I say that's clearly a foul. They had one versus what am I doing here? They had one the other night, and I was like that's foul, and they didn't give him the foul. So I don't understand NBA officiating. That's what I'm going to say. So, but big game for the Pacers. I wanted to watch them play last night because I didn't have anything else to do. So tonight I actually have something to do and they play. So I did watch part of the Thunder game though, and they choked. So Grant, big time Boiler, says Boiler up. Odom doing well so far. Hopefully there is enough talent to form a decent competitive team. Yeah, I think that's what Purdue fans want this year. If we're just being real frank, real honest, that's all Purdue fans want. A competitive team, a team that's going to fight, a team that will not, if you get down by 2 touchdowns, doesn't roll over. And that happened a lot last year. And so our standards are pretty low. I don't mean to, if you're a parent of the team, I would say if you've got a kid that's going to fight and he's going to get on the field, that's a good start. It's a really good start. And I think Odom's a different mentality. I think he'll help that. So Nolan Hosteller says, the Painter article made me love the guys on the team even more. You always say you want guys to be Boilermakers, and that's what we have here. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, this is the thing. It's interesting. There are a lot of fans that are struggling to stay tuned in with the team, especially after what just happened in the portal. Losing Colvin Heide specifically was a punch in the gut to a lot of fans. But there are a lot of things to focus on that are really positive on the basketball side specifically. Very easy to glom on to this team, to stay tuned in to them. This isn't as much of a target as the roster size of a football team. And the problem we have with the roster, I told you, I know a couple kids on the team, but I got to meet Garrett Odom, and that was impressive to me. And Max Parrott, he just seems like a normal kid. He's another one, just like he's a big human being, but a normal kid. It reminded me some of my son's friends who are in his class, in his freshman class. So, but on the basketball side, very easy to root for these guys. And Painter has been brilliant with the storytelling with the media, and this is another thing. He did a really good job in making his guys shine, especially with Purdue fans. Greg Mitchell says, mathematically, with the sheer volume of players in the football portal, I didn't think any ranking list should be taken seriously. I think that's fair. Hard enough in basketball with a fraction of the players. This is very difficult stuff. And here's the thing. There are very few people that are batting close to 1,000 that are writing articles about how good, when they do a rundown, a top 10 ranking, a conference ranking of who's winning, losing in the portal. I'm skeptical of all of it with you guys. I'm skeptical of a lot of things, but this one seems really, really hard, really difficult in football to understand exactly what you're going to get. I feel worse and less confident about my ability to predict what's coming next than I ever have as a fan. So part of it's because there's been some tumult. Let's not forget, Purdue's coming off of, this is the third coach in 2, 3, 4 years. So that's a lot to ask for fans to say, yeah, I really feel confident in this. Whatever it is, pick a factor: offense, defense, interior line play, whatever you want to say. Wide receivers. So he said, under Brom, Purdue became wide out U. There were wide receivers coming out, going to the pros pretty regularly. That's pretty awesome. And even the guys that weren't going pro, you had talent coming in that skill position, right? You also had some guys that were big time blue chip players that came to play for Brom. That was a big deal. And so you started seeing, okay, there's a trend here, especially at the end it tapered. And that's part of the reason you knew he was leaving. He had started mailing it in and recruiting. But interesting discussion about his long-term historical respect or reputation among Purdue fans. I think it's something that we can talk about and discuss. It's all opinion-based, but what do you think about Jeff Brom's long-term? I mean, obviously he made a huge difference at that point. Anish talks about him saving Purdue football, but how quickly that salvation went away, right? And how quickly everything that he built was gone. There's not even, other than Maccabee, there's very few things that are remnants of the Jeff Brom era, and it's just 3 years out. So it's wild. Let's see. Big Time Boiler says, at the end of the day, it's still a crapshoot. Luckily, we have a good coaching staff that has done this 3 years in a row. Hoping it works out where we can at least get 4 wins. And I think I'm in lockstep with you. But having to do this, he did it twice at UNLV, and now he's doing it at Purdue. A lot of his UNLV players that are somewhat proven commodities are coming with him. I wish that linebacker who played for UNLV, who was all conference type guy, I wish he had one more year of eligibility. I'm sure if you asked nicely, he could come to Purdue, but I think he's going to the NFL. He was really, really good. Hard-nosed guy. I think he was a little bit undersized, probably 6 foot, 6'1", maybe. But absolute monster, and he would have played well in the Big Ten. Motor City Boiler says, he's talking to Greg. And then Greg continues. He says, NIL contracts and tighter portal windows cleans a lot of portal heartburn up quite a bit. So I expect the NCAA to address that in about 15 years. Exactly. If there's a problem, the NCAA will be on top of it in a decade to 20 years. There's no doubt about it. They're the best at that. They have done so little proactive actions. And I know that people that argue that the NCAA has gotten, the problems that they've had to deal with are all based on lawsuits and getting sued after they create a rule. The reason they create that rule, though, it's always knee-jerk. It's always reacting to something. They never have a long-term thought process. And I said this to somebody recently. The NCAA has the budget to have good lawyers. And what they could do is say, make sure you don't break the law, right? Make sure you're not doing something that's keeping someone from making a living, for instance. And being proactive and saying, okay, this is the framework we're going to work with. And what they need to do is a players union of some sort, or players representation is going to be needed. I don't like unions any more than anybody, than somebody else that's not a big union guy. But I will say this, when you have those people have representatives and they agree to things, it's a lot harder to back out of them once they've signed that. For instance, 2-year contracts. Real simple. Second, contracts that are transparent. Those would clear up a lot of things. Shortening the portal window would work wonders, right? It's not saying that it's constantly rotating and never ending. Fans have no idea, and I can only speak for myself here, what's coming. You can do research and you can look at things, and I've done it. I've gone over the roster many times, and I still feel like I don't know a damn thing. And if I do this as a hobby where I put a lot of time in this, how does a guy who doesn't feel that invested, or a girl who doesn't feel that invested in it, how do they do it? I mean, I'm just speaking for my own. Maybe I'm out of line. Maybe you guys all understand what's going on, and only Greg McManus, Fairweather Greg McManus, and I are the only two people who really don't know what's going on. Very possible, Greg. You and I both know that. So, well, thanks to everybody for tuning in. I think this is a short-ish QuickCast, 40 minutes. Well done, B-Dowd, as always. Talk to you soon. God bless you. Hammer down. And maybe I'll have some reaction to the actual schedule. Maybe I'll do that. Let's do that. Let's meet again this week. The week after that, I'll probably be off. I'm positive I will be. But let's try to meet again later in the week. I'm not going to tell you when. It's going to be a surprise, and you're going to love it. See ya.